Oh.
After all these years.
I know, right? And this is what's special.
Years.
This is what's special. This woman here, I was trying to think. We've been in and out of each other's lives for what, 25, 26 years? We met at a tiny, tiny window in the mid-90s when we were both in the same demographic.
And I don't think that we spent that much time together.
I don't think we did either.
I think maybe a workshop or a little bit here and there in the same church.
We were in Simi Valley, California. Janette Freeman. And you weren't even a minister then, or a doctor, or any of
Nothing.
that.
I was a single mom just taking classes so that I could stay above it.
And I was in my own struggle. I wasn't single at the time, but I should have been.
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah. So here we are. What year are we? 2019?
2019.
Oh my gosh. And I sought Janette out to speak to her about this quarter of a century that she's been reinventing herself, transforming herself. And without getting too heavy into any of it, this is a living, walking, breathing, eat, pray, love example right here. This woman is fearless about her life. So I hope my questions are worthy of you. And I really actually want you to tell me what it is you feel makes you the person who can do this.
First of all, whenever anybody says fearless, I think, who are they talking about? Yeah. Because I feel like I've spent most of my life afraid. I have spent most of my life afraid. And from early childhood experiences to single mother, survival, but at the same time, I face it.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's only possible through my spiritual practice and through spiritual connection, because the little self of Janette, just my personality, and now as I understand it more and more, really my brain and my programming, that old stuff is afraid. But everybody's afraid. I mean, we have a fear-based brain that's constantly saying, watch out, watch out. So it's always afraid. But the higher self of me is not afraid. And my relationship with the divine and the meditative practice, or when I can connect to that part, it's not afraid. So that's the only way I've ever been able to feel the fear and do it anyway, so to speak.
That's huge. And off the top of your head, let's say an opportunity comes to you in the next 5 minutes and it brings up that fear in you. Where do you automatically go, or where would you take yourself to move through that fear?
Take a breath. Really, take a breath and just calm down, because I know that I can't think clearly when I'm afraid or when I'm in fear. So my first course of action is always to move beyond the fear before doing anything, because fear could be a real warning. It could be a real, don't go there. It could be like a stop, don't go there. Or it could be just out of your comfort zone. Yeah. Two different things.
How do you know the difference?
You don't know the difference from the face of fear. So it's like, don't make any decisions when you're in fear. It's not pushing through fear. It's about returning to the presence, returning to the present moment, returning internally, and then in a state of peace, the guidance is clearer.
So don't make a decision when you're in fear. Return to the present moment. And I'm leading you to what you shared with me last night about the I am breath.
Right.
Would that be a good way to get there?
Totally great.
Can you just give us an example of that?
Can I give some background to that?
Absolutely.
Because I would like to share how this stage of my life.
Yes.
Okay, so because I don't feel very courageous anymore, like ballsy courageous.
Right. Right.
Like that doesn't resonate so much with me. In this phase of my life, as I was a minister for 20 years almost, and in a community, and I was in Southern California in my last community. 2 years ago, I left church community and moved up here in order to be a support to my granddaughter, but really I had to start all over because there was no opportunity for me here. to start a church or be in a church. And I was really wanting to create something different at this rate. I want to do something different. So everybody knows if you lose a job and then you're like have to start all over creating income and creating a new life, it's a big transition.
Yes, it is.
So that's that area that I have been in, which naturally has put me in the fight or flight response more often. In other words, I've been insecure more than I'm used to being insecure. I wasn't used to being in so much insecurity all the time. I was having a hard time remembering the truth. In other words, remembering that God is right where I am. I'm safe and secure. Everything's unfolding in divine grace. I'm so happy and joyful and peaceful in every moment, and being able to be in that space. And so I just kept praying and doing my daily practice and going in and out of it. And one morning before I was awake, I kept hearing this voice in my head saying, it's source code, it's your source code, it's your source code, source code, source code.
Source code.
Yeah, like the coding in a computer, right? And I knew it was talking about I am. Because I was constantly contemplating I am. I had been reading the I am discourses. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And, it's been fascinating to me and studying. But I didn't understand what that meant. So I looked it up on Google. I Googled it, right?
Of course. What else do you do?
Right, I Googled it. Wikipedia said. People know what source code is, but I didn't really. And it was like source code was human readable programming language that could be interpreted and immediately executed. And it was like, I am is this source code. So what that meant for me, is I've always thought of ourselves as kind of living out of this computer, and we understand that the brain is basically a computer, and we live unconsciously out of the programs that we have. So the continued revelation over the next year was all about uploading this operating system to going beyond living from this fear-based brain to quickening, allowing the source, not us, we can't do it, the little self, but aligning with the source so that the source is downloading the new operating system for more evolved human species. And that the word of I am and the contemplation of I am, that the words I am are encoded with divine truth and divine power. And to continue to do the mantra of I am to hook up to this presence so that presence can begin to lead and guide. Now I'll share with that.
Yes, thank you for that.
And to link that in, what I started doing was this internal mantra, and it became like a lifeline through this transitionary
of
period.
Insecurity, which I think was brilliant. What you said was it made you more open, the insecurity. So now you're open to this new thing that's coming through. So please proceed.
Right. Like, God, I don't know what to do. Please help me. Source code. So that practice, and it continues, is just to go, first I'll teach you the breath thing. Because it's so powerful. You just take a breath through your nose. Go ahead and close your eyes if you want to. And breathe in through the nose, putting all of your attention on the nose. Just to start to make that connection to the breath. To unhook from that busy mind and bring the attention to the inflow and outflow of the breath. That's right. Just right there at the nostrils, feeling and connecting to that breath. And after you've made that connection to the breath, actually gone into the present moment just a little bit, you simply add the I am mantra. That's I on the in-breath, am on the out-breath, I on the in-breath, am on the out-breath, I on the in-breath, am on the out-breath. And just even a few breaths of that brings you into center.
Even just those 3?
Yeah, just 3 breaths will start to calm you down. In my whole course and book, it goes into a lot more detail about really connecting energetically to the higher self and learning to access that peace and learning to access what we need. So in other words, when I'm scared and insecure and wondering where my money's coming from, I remember that the I am presence of me, my Lord, my God, myself, is my provider, not externally. The practice is like the I am of me. I always think of it as a vertical energetic line. It is the source. It is where I feed myself from this I am line. And my looking horizontally to the job, to the client, to this, always pulls me out of my line. I'm looking outside for my needs to be met, right? Mm-hmm. And every time I'm looking outside, and I am all the time, okay? I don't want to say I am all the time, but we all are. We're conditioned to look outside. So I look outside, I don't see it, so I get afraid.
Yeah.
I look to the future.
Don't see
I
it.
don't see it.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it looks anything like this for a long time, that could be scary.
Yeah.
So fear thoughts of the future, they're scary for me. So it's like a repatterning, a reprogramming of really, no, in here. And I have seen it so many times when I'm really hooking into this. I have seen, like, I have always had money. I have traveled all over in the last year.
Yes, you
I go
have.
all over the place. This miraculous things just fall into my lap. But why? Because I'm learning to quit looking outside, like that's my source, and connecting to the source inside of me. It's just like, it reminds me, are you familiar with the Bible?
Of course.
And in Old Testament, and the slaves are in the wilderness, and what are they going to eat?
Yeah.
And they get manna. And the manna is only available one day at a time. Remember that? Like, so if they gathered up the manna to store it, it will rot. And they had to learn to trust the Lord for their food every day. I'm getting goosebumps.
Great
too.
Example.
Yeah, and so that's been walking the fire for me in the last couple of years, is the present moment. Everything will be fine. Come back to the present moment. Come back to the I am. And
Which, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I want to define that. So often we hear in New Age that all we have to do is think our way into something. In that present moment, am I correct in thinking that you receive inspiration for how to act? Instead of thinking your way into how to act, you receive, oh, I'll go over here. You receive an impulse.
Exactly.
Okay.
The brain, the programming, we all know. We've lived long enough to know that these programs and these belief systems come back over and over again. They do. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm kind of over with trying to completely repattern something.
We were talking
because
about that.
It's just there.
It's just there.
And so it's like the physical self. It's the programming of the brain. It's the programming of the little self.
Well, it's on that lateral line, isn't it?
It's on that lateral line.
Okay.
It's just aligning with the higher self in whatever practices can take us there. Then we get intuition and we get guidance, and we can actually have a chance of something new. There's nothing new in the old brain. Of course, in the newness and allowing the newness, we have to walk hand in hand with the old brain and the fear.
Stay there for a second. This is really good, because as you're talking, my body's just tingling, and that started when you were talking about the simplicity of the vertical line. So it's about simplicity. This is huge for me because I make everything too complicated trying to figure it out. So please speak to, can it really be that simple?
It's simple. It's not easy because of the river of programming in the brain. But the practice is simple. The practice is the practice of unhooking from the conditioned brain and the unhooking of the stress response. There's a stress response in the brain whenever we have any sort of insecurity. And I believe that most people are living in a constant
Anxiety.
stress response.
You mentioned that last night. We were all in anxiety. And what was the other word you used last night?
Depression?
Yes.
And anxiety.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We all experience that. Not just people who are taking medication or seeking counseling.
Right.
We all have it.
Yeah. And the culture that we live in and the fear of the cultural thing that's happening and everyone's own path of transformation and healing, what's happening is I think so many people are living in a low-level stress response. Now, let's just break it down now.
Yeah.
I'm not a physical doctor, but I know a little bit. And when we have a perception and looking externally and horizontally at the world, and we have a perception that triggers the fear response, information doesn't get to the frontal lobe. It is hijacked in the limbic system and creates stress in the body. Technically, what we want to learn to do is help that go faster instead of like I'm in a stress response. Okay, so I'm in a stress response. In order to move out of a stress response, I can use the breath or the present moment as my main portals to peace. If I'm in a stress response, which a lot of times we all are, if we could remember to connect to the breath. What I really try to get across to people and to remember myself, 2 little words. I am.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what else to do. Just remember I am. So that I am is a mantra that can go in the back of your head all the time, even when you're not even feeling, I am. I mean, I'm like, I am. So I am is a practice. I am is a word that is the name of God, is the name of the divine, is the name
That's
of
what I wanted you to say. Yes.
Divine.
Tell me what that means. Why is it so powerful, those 2 words?
In all the scriptures, it talks about that. Take it even deeper. In the Amgata discourses, it says, I am means God in action. God in action. When I say I am saying I am divine in action. Now, how do we use the words I am? We use the words to identify with something or some experience or some self. So I say, I am Janette. Great. I am old. Not so great. I am beautiful. Great. I am running late. I am sick. I am this. Yeah. And we build our whole life in all these different identities. I am is the name of God as us. When I say I am that I am, I'm saying I am Janette. I am God.
That's a big statement, girl.
But that's what spiritual awakening is.
I agree with you, and it's a big statement. How does someone who's never really thought that about themselves wrap themselves around that?
They can't. You can't wrap yourself around it. You can't think yourself into it. But when you utter the words, it can start to wrap itself around you.
Oh, nice.
It can start to reveal itself in a way that we don't know how to do it.
So it comes down to trust that you're someone who has lived long enough on the path of figuring this out yourself. This is working for you. If I can just trust that it's working for her, maybe this could work for me too.
Yeah, I guess that's what happens with people, is that they have to see that somebody's doing it, and it's working for them. But ultimately, there's no more of it worked for them, it'll work for me. There's no more of that. It's like, what works for you? I don't know what works for everybody. I'm not here for everybody. And I think everybody finds their own path and finds the things that work for them. And I would say this, look at your own state and find a way that helps you. Mindfulness practice, going to the present moment, connecting to the breath, interrupts the stress response. And I'm saying that the words of I am, just more divinely empowered practice.
But had you not told me this, reminded me of this, because I'd heard this before. The times that I get into these traumatic, insecure spots, and they come and go. It's like waves, right?
Right.
I forget.
Right.
So I need to be reminded by someone like you who maybe is clear in the moment I'm not clear. That's kind of what I meant by.
Right, exactly. We all need that.
So that's the point of this conversation with people that I love and trust, to tell me this so that I can share this. And you're doing a brilliant job. The work you're doing is brilliant. I want to make sure that I mention, where can people find more of you? There are a couple of places on the internet.
The easiest way is my website, JanetteFreeman.com.
Okay.
And in the website has direction to the books and the programs and all of that.
Right.
And then, of course, Facebook and Instagram. Yes, Insight Timer. I have a lot of my teachings and meditations, and I have the course on Insight Timer.
Right.
And I also have the course on my website. The course is just 10 simple lessons. It's called The Power of I Am to Manifest Your Desires. And it starts to lay down the practice. Then in more detail, I'm just getting ready to launch the book, which is the I Am Source Code book. And that outlines the meditations and the practice and starts to lay down a foundation for this evolution and this awakening that's taken place. And then book 2 will be out shortly, and that's more the practice in your life. I totally get that it sounds really simple.
Yeah.
And I also get that in real life, faced with lots of stress and anxiety and fear and everything, confusion, that it's not always that simple. I understand that. And
especially when we feel alone.
Yeah.
We don't have you in our living room. Even if
I could be there.
I'll bet you could.
So let me tell you about that. I agree. And from somebody that was in tribe, in spiritual community, my whole life. Like I was raised that way. I always was in a church. And then I was leaders of church for a long time. And now I have no tribe.
Right.
Physical tribe.
Right.
It's been so much really effort to stay in remembering. Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly, I forget, I remember, I forget, I remember. So I'm listening to books and tapes and podcasts and video. I listen to things all the time.
That's good.
Because I can't, because I forget. I
really
forget
good.
all the time. I feel like the next phase for my work is just to keep creating opportunities for remembering. We're in the process of setting up an online tribe and just resources, and we share back and forth with each other to help us remember. And be in community, where for some reason we can't be in community in our physical home, our neighboring community, that you really can't feel community online in a classroom setting. You can actually make some friends. I noticed in church communities for all those years, I used to use the analogy that one stick breaks really easy, but if you put a whole bunch of sticks together, they don't break as easy. And when people are in community and they're showing up and they're in classes and they're together, they don't forget as much, because now we are blessed by the consciousness of others, right? So we're affected by what our environment is. So without tribe, without community, we feel alone and we get lost. We're not meant to be trying to do this by ourselves. It's, especially in this climate.
And loneliness is an epidemic in our country.
It's very much an epidemic.
So it's not an unusual thing to feel that. In fact, I was thinking last night when I got here, and we were sharing about lots of things, and I remember just the girl talk we were having made me feel not so alone in what I was going through. Isn't there a saying that wherever two or more are gathered?
Right.
So that's how powerful just that conversation between you and I. Right. So you're talking about a bigger tribe, and there's some real power in that. I love that you're creating a tribe. Mm-hmm. What were you saying before we started rolling about, at this stage in our lives, it's not about something, it's about acceptance? Do you remember what that was?
Oh, right. Well, we were talking about, hip replacements and this.
All the things that happen when we age.
Yeah, and I thought that for my own practice, I've always been like, I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to make it better, and I can accept this because I'm going to create something different, and what do I want to create, what am I moving towards? And that's caused more anxiety for me.
Goal-oriented.
That's caused, and I don't have the I don't know if it's testosterone,
Well,
but I don't have the drive like I used to. I have a,
I'm not sure if it's a testosterone or an ego thing. Like it's got to get done for me to be this thing.
I'm sure, yes, absolutely. And I think that's part of our evolution is the ego's starting to crumble. And it's kind of painful.
Goosebumps again.
Ego crumbling.
Yeah, well, that it happens and it's a good thing. That maybe the ego is part of that insecurity, and maybe we have to get to that place.
Not maybe.
Just trying to be nice about it. So we have to get to
Maybe.
that place where we feel insecure so that we move through it and we don't stop there. Some people do stop there. And I think that may be part of depression.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if you're someone who really doesn't want to and you want to move through that, back to the breath, back to the present moment, find a tribe.
So in order to get to the present moment, we have to be willing to accept the present moment.
Yeah. That's what it was.
That's what it was. Yeah. If my present moment am stressed that I'm getting older and I don't have the financial security for my future that I'm supposed to have at this age, or if I should have been married and I shouldn't have, all these things that this shouldn't be happening at my age. I should be this.
Yeah.
That is anxiousness. That is anxiety to the max.
It's brutal.
It's brutal. But how do I get from anxiety to the max to peace if I don't have a reshift of what I'm constantly looking at? I'm going to keep going back. So acceptance is that shift. It's like whatever. How can I learn to accept the present moment unconditionally? So this is the moment that we have. This is it. Whatever's going on, this is it. It's when I say this is what is, I can feel peaceful. It's not the same as saying I never want anything to be better. It's not just giving up in that way. It's like I accept this moment as it is in order to be peaceful. That's why,
It's not a defeatist thing, because my brain goes to, well, if I accept this, it means I'm not trying anymore.
I totally get it. But that's the ego brain, and it's not really true. If feeling good and feeling peaceful is our goal, and for me it is.
Yeah.
Feeling happiness, feeling peaceful is my goal. So if feeling good is my goal, then acceptance of what I don't like is necessary. Because fighting up against what I don't like will bring me anxiety.
Yeah.
So I can accept this moment is like it is. And listen, this is an everyday practice. I'm not standing here going, I got this. I'm right in the fucking middle of it, okay? like right in the middle of it. It's, it's just the walk. It's just the walk right now.
I think it's so honest of you to say this, because I think, and this is partly why I wanted to talk to you, because you don't hold back in how you feel about things like that, and this is why I think your work is so valuable. We need this information. We need someone like you to say, start with simple. Just start with simple. And then when you feel just a little bit stronger, what would happen next? When you feel a little stronger, and the I am is, okay, I'm kind of okay with all of this. What might be a next step?
There doesn't need to be a whole bunch. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's like, let me share another story.
Okay, yes.
So I was visiting my son in Las Vegas, and he was going to be out of town, but he left the key and everything like that. And it was one of those high-rise, high-security condominiums. So he has a little key fob to open every door, and it had all these luxurious things to do, gym and a ladies spa and pool and everything. It was fabulous. But I get there and I can't make the fob work. Like I'm trying to get the fob to work and it won't work, and I ask and they say, no, you have to use your fingerprint. So I'm like, so my fingerprint doesn't work, right? So the whole time for 2 days, I stay in the apartment. It's quite nice, has a lovely view, and I got work to do, but I didn't get to enjoy that. So anyway, he gets home, and I say, I couldn't get into anything. You tell me I need your thumb. He says, no, you don't. He takes the fob and he puts it in another place. He goes, just like that. And the door opened.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, God, what's the message for me?
Yeah.
It's like, I have the key, but I'm not using it correctly. I have the key, I'm not using it correctly. And it was such a slight shift, because I had taken that fob all over that sensor, everywhere. But there was just this one little place that I needed. And I just heard, the key, the access point is in the present moment. Yeah. And I'm like, and I got it, because I know that. But I'm like, I am demonstrating money. I am demonstrating work. I am, right? Like, what's the key? What's like, and it was like, and I heard, you know, it's not I will be. It's not I can be. It's not I was. It's I am.
Goosebumps again.
It's I am.
Yeah.
If right now, and the way that we go to the present moment, you know, I mean, Eckhart Tolle talks about it. Everybody talks about it. It's in the breath, in the body. The body is the only part of us that's in the present moment. Yoga, exercise.
I was going to ask you, what sort of movement?
It's like, be where you are. But we're not where we are. We're never in the moment. We're in our head. So it's like, take a breath. Be in the present moment. Be in the present moment.
It's coming back all the time.
And it comes back. And then we make that our number one. I always say, it's the line. It's my line. My line. It's my I am line. My divine I am line.
Divine line.
Taking a breath. Going into my line. Taking a breath. This moment. I'm going to accept everything. Allow me. Come back to this moment. And I'll forget in a couple of minutes. But you don't need to be in remember. But we don't need
forget, or is that our age?
No, it's just the human condition. We're lost in the mind, and until we are spiritually awakening, and spiritually awakening really means that I start to identify more with my higher self as the I am than this little self, thinking this little self is real. But it's not like the little self is a problem. Like, I'm here, I got this body, I got this personality, I got my insecurities, I've got my faults, but I also have this, and this is a little more fun because then I don't get trapped so much. But you know, spiritual awakening, I mean, I've been in spiritual awakening experiences where I am that I am. There's no, this is just something else. And then I get lost in this something else. And that's the journey that we're on. Neurologically, the more we're conditioned and the more we align with the higher self, God or the higher self is the only power that can awaken us. We can't do it with our mind. We cannot do it with our mind. So, you know, surrender, spiritual practice, whatever path a person's on that can connect them to God, connect them to their higher self, connect them to their divine presence, connect to that which is like so big we can't even comprehend it. And surrender to that more and more. And let it continue to inform us. And that presence supports us. And it supplies. And I think if anything else, what I'm really learning in this time is that the presence is my source. The presence is my source. The presence is my source of money, of everything. And I'm having to practice that every day. Practicing feeling good.
Well, I am practicing feeling grateful for you and for this time with you. This is wonderful to see you again and to hear this. Yeah. I needed this. I hope you needed this.
I need it too. Every time someone will talk to me about it, then I remember more deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes through.
Right. And that's why it's been more difficult, you know.
When you're not speaking.
Because when I speak, it's this presence speaking through me.
Exactly.
And I learn from the presence speaking through me.
Yes. Well, will you do this with me again?
Sure.
This is to be continued. This is now that I have you back in my world, you're staying.
Okay,
I'm
good.
keeping you. Thank you so much for being with us. It's been a joy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, you sweet girl.